It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the VO Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I'm here with the lovely and most wonderful Lau Lapidez.
Hello, my love.
Hello. Welcome to our Business Superpowers series.
So excited to be here, as always.
And we always need to really up our business superpowers, don't we, Lau?
We do, always, every day.
And I think probably one of the most common questions that I get asked as a coach, and also you must as well as an agent and casting directors, what are the current trends in casting? How can I better prepare myself, right, to evolve my business to keep up with the trends in casting? So I thought it would be a great opportunity to talk, especially with you who casts on a day-to-day basis. What are you seeing in terms of casting trends these days, Lau?
Trendy, yes. Well, what's been going on for quite a while is diversity casting. Like we're always in need of more diversity, more representatives, both accent-wise, language-wise, delivery-wise, culturally, ethnically. I mean, this is all in the mix right now and kind of at the front of the line, which is exciting to see such an international mix of Indigenous peoples that are really representing their country, their region, their profile, so to speak. So we're always looking to certainly up our roster, up our game in our roster, finding authentic talent from all over the world, even just Spanish talent. I'm totally in need of authentic Spanish talent of many dialects. Accent-free is fantastic, but then if you're not accent-free, dialects are wonderful if we know specifically where you're placed, because we really have to go with the real deal. It can't be an actor who's just really great at sound or accents. It really has to be the real person representing.
Well, I'll tell you what I love about it is not just diversity, but authenticity. I think authenticity all the way around, which has been a trend coming through the years. And especially now, people are just looking for other people to be authentic. And so when it comes to my students, originally it used to be they're like, can you please take away my accent? Or I want to be good at narration. So should I have this neutral accent? And I'm like, look, as long as I can understand you, number one, that is, I think, the most important. I mean, you don't want to have maybe a speech impediment that would inhibit me from understanding what you're saying. However, when it comes to accents, I don't think it's as critical as it used to be. It used to be that thing that you had to have absolutely neutral accent, whatever that might be these days. But I'm having people embrace their authenticity. And if their authenticity is regional, they have an accent, then I absolutely will say, well, let's look for spots that would really work with that. And I think we've always tried to do that, but even more so now, I feel encouraged to tell my students, don't worry about that. I want you to bring you to the party first. That is the most important objective that I have as an educator and as a coach, to get you to be authentic. And that really is what I think casting trends today are all about.
If you can be the best version of you and really bring that to the table authentically, that's what we're looking for. If you can also neutralize it a bit, round it out a bit, that's great too. It just gives you more options.
Yeah.
But I fear for clients that come in, or I should say talent that comes in, especially at a certain stage, once you hit like even 30 or 35 or 40, it's very, very difficult to authentically change your dialect or shift your accent. It just is. It's not impossible, but it would take a lot of work with a dialectician to do something like that. And I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it should be an objective for you. It really should be like your vocabulary. What is it?
I mean, work with a dialect coach if you want to consider other dialects for characters, maybe. But I don't think it's to remove your dialect these days, unless, of course, you have a very heavy regional accent, and in which case, if you would like to maybe try to lessen that a little bit, but I don't think it's necessary to remove it at all, actually.
No.
Because again, there is so many companies embracing that authenticity. And now, of course, in the casting specs, they're looking for talent who are authentically from particular areas and regions. And now if you were kind of had that fake accent or that generic accent, that I don't think is needed as much anymore. Is there such a thing? What was it the other day I was on a panel? What is it with the authentic, the Mid-Atlantic accent? I think.
Oh, right.
Is that even a thing anymore?
I don't
think
know.
Really, it's just they want to have some sort of a dialect where you can't really tell where you're from. I'm not even sure. So, guys, embrace your authenticity. I think that's so important. And first of all, that's a tall order, Law, to embrace your authenticity. That I think as actors is really one of the hardest things that we have to do, because so many times I encounter talent who want to sound a particular way, or they feel it should sound a particular way. And again, bringing their authentic selves to the copy is so very difficult. They're either able to do that if the copy is written maybe in a dialogue format, but when it's not, it's very difficult to do that. And also, I find that a lot of character actors, Law, like to hide behind their characters in a way where they can make their characters seem authentic, but yet when you ask them to bring themselves to the table, that becomes an immense challenge.
Huge challenge. And I would say, too, in regards to the superpower show that we're working on right now, like one of your superpowers is being a really great business person.
Yeah.
So a trend I've seen over the last few years is how qualified are you as a business partner in terms of your correspondence, in terms of your timing? Are you timely about your responses? We're casting something really big right now with a client, and one of our talent, not her fault at all, but our records were just either weren't updated or whatever the case may be. The email never reached her in regards to availability. And so I called her on the phone. I reached her. She said, that's actually not even my email. That person lets me know when they get my emails. There's something in the system that defaults. So my point is, like, are you on top of your records, your emails? Are you flagging your people that you're reaching out to?
I would be kicking myself. You know what I mean? If there's one thing that you can prevent, right, in terms of what can you do to help get yourself cast more?
Right.
It would be making sure your agents and all your rosters have the most current relevant information and demos as well.
And making sure it's easily accessible. You expedite really well and really quickly, and like being on top of those trends. Like when we went to a recent conference, you and I found that less and less people were giving out actual physical business cards, even though I still love them. I'm old school that way. I like to hold something in my hand. They were doing QR codes. They were on their phone going, hey, let me take it right off my phone onto your phone. Boom, boom, boom. It was fun. It was done. It was quick. I got it. My point is, do the physical business cards if that's what you love and do, but know what the trend is for the online business card, because that shows you've got your finger on the pulse of technology and what's going on in our industry.
Yeah. And I think casting trends in terms of, making yourself available, understanding what your agent expects from you communication-wise, I think is very, very important. And also, I'm going to go back to the sound/demographic. One thing that I want to make people aware of is a lot of times demographics and casting is based on trends in consumerism and trends in companies selling products to a specific demographic. So there are a lot of companies that may have an older audience, or there might be companies that cater to moms, or products that are catering towards young people. I think a lot of times we see the trend going back towards millennial young, because there's so many companies that are just trying to expand their market. So understand, guys, I think sometimes we don't think about it. I think we think about casting in terms of, was I making it sound correct, right? Was I the right sound for them? But sometimes you're not the right demographic for the product. And so just remember that the next time you get really disappointed, you didn't land that big gig and think that you didn't perform to your ability. A lot of times it's because it's a sales demographic. It wants to cater that voice to a particular age group. And that would be another thing, Law, I want to talk to you about. In terms of casting age groups, I see a lot younger, but also middle-aged. What about older? What about the older demographic?
We're getting more.
Okay.
We're getting more and more of that. I mean, probably, Annie, now more than ever, we've had the more mature demographic. So the senior in the industry is known as like 50 to like 65, 50 to 64 would be a young senior, and then a more mature senior would be the 65 and up.
Okay.
So we're seeing more of 50 and up for sure, whether it's
good.
health or travel, finance, even software. We're seeing more and more of that coming through. So I think there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, that's really good because I know for a while there, it's tough sometimes because what products do we have that cater towards that 55 and up age group? You really have to start thinking about it. And I would always encourage bosses. I do a lot of work in corporate. I do a lot of coaching in corporate and just researching companies in general, researching what products are out there for what age groups. And as a matter of fact, I'll always have my students, they fill out one of their very first forms in the vocal branding form is, let's talk about brands you're familiar with for babies. What are brands you're familiar with for teenagers? What brands are you familiar with for middle-aged, for seniors? And really try to come up with the brands that you hear being talked about today for these different groups and understand that there is a sound and a demographic for each group, and it's all based on sales. So the next time you don't get that big gig, it could just be, we discussed this during our audition demolition multiple times, Law, that the person might have nailed the performance, but they just didn't have the right demographic.
Yes. Yes, actually, that is so much of casting, whether you're voiceover or on camera or both. So much of it is based off of things that's out of your hands.
Yeah,
So you have to understand that the profile of who you are, your bio, your background, sometimes we can't do much about that. We are who we are. And that's why accepting who you are and being the best version of that is really, really important.
Yeah.
And finding what is your strongest suit? Like, what is your strongest, most competitive value proposition, and really putting that at the forefront.
Agreed.
So that you're spending a lot more of your energy in that direction than in 10 different directions.
Yeah.
Right? Niche it down.
It's wonderful to have versatility. I'm all for versatility. However, you need to be able to market yourself, right, to specific niches. And, you know, I found that out myself as well, right, in terms of voiceover wise, right? Where did my voice fit in? Where was I getting hired the most? And I think that bosses out there, depending on how you're being cast, you're going to be able to find that and also do work to develop that more and to really go for auditions that speak to that strength of yours. Now, I'm not saying that you should not audition for anything else. I truly believe that every once in a while you surprise yourself and you audition for something that maybe you don't feel is in your wheelhouse, and all of a sudden you'll get cast because you never quite know where that company is headed, right? Maybe they want to switch directions and maybe their demographic is an older sound, and then maybe they've decided they want to go more middle-aged, or maybe they want to, I don't know, speak from a millennial point of view. And so you're never really going to know. I mean, just like we try to cater to the people who will hire us the most, we can also, every once in a while, give ourselves that surprise, audition for things that you feel maybe you're not well suited for, but maybe the company will have a change of heart.
And also, too, Annie, to piggyback onto that point, when you're going after your own client base, your own prospects, right, outside of casting director, outside of an agency, outside of all of that, you can mold a little bit of what you do and who you are in a couple different directions.
Sure.
But it has to be based on the target demographic. So, for instance, if you're going after, as a talent, I'm going after the medical field. I want to do some medical reads. I'm excellent at that. I'm wonderful at technical language. I want to put that out there in my cover letter or in my website so that they can point right to that and see, oh, there's my technical reads. I can do medical reads. I'm understanding healthcare. I get that. So speaking the language and understanding the lingo of a prospect client is going to go a long way versus them sitting and listening to 4 demos.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes they won't do it. They want to see, where are you coming from? Where's your mindset? And where's your language actually coming from? Does it match?
Sure.
The type of work that we do. So I would say go on the website, go on the YouTube channel, look at who they are and what they do before you approach them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then have a portion of your demo or have your demo catered to that. I'm a big believer in a lot of corporate demos that I do or long format narration demos. I'm always looking at the different industries that hire voiceover and making a spot for each one of them. So therefore, if you want to cater to an automotive company and you're going to be maybe a narrator on a walkabout or a new sales video, you can cater a spot on that demo that speaks the language of the people that you are selling to. And just like a company wants to sell to their demographic, you want to sell your voice that is specifically suited to a particular genre or a particular industry. Make sure that you have samples and you have demo material that can be sent to these people so that they can hear it right away. They don't have to listen to like, oh, I listened to your entire commercial demo or your entire corporate narration demo and it was the 6th spot and I didn't know from the get-go if it was even in your demo. So you have to really start catering. And I talk about target marketing a lot in my business, and I like to create target marketed demos because I think that helps you to get cast easier. And now, Lau, I'm going to talk to you specifically on the commercial aspect of things because you cast a lot of commercial work. How important is the demo in the commercial work, or is it the audition that's most important? What do you think?
It's both. It's both. Of course, first it's going to be the demo because I may not have met you or may not have heard you yet until you're in our roster. We don't know what you do. We don't know what you're capable of doing. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the demo because chances are great we're not going to do a live audition. Like we never do a live audition when we're listening to people to bring them in as talent to the roster. It's always from a demo. It just is.
But your clients, however, are they going to want to hear a demo or an audition?
You know, it's a good question. And there's some guesswork in that. It's shifting. The trends are really shifting. I think less and less clients are listening to demos and more just for time's sake, they want an audition with a copy from their specific job. Now, that's not to say that if they're considering 5 people, if they're not going to quickly go and listen to the demos and hear, have you done that kind of work before? I'm sure that they do. But I think upfront, time seems to be always of the issue, and they just want to get people in. They want to get them reading, and they want to get... So they're relying on us to have listened to the demo. We have the demo. We've vetted the demo. They're relying on us that we don't need to listen to the demo.
Because you've already done it.
The agency already listened to it. Yes.
Now, I asked you that question specifically because we were talking about commercial or things that typically are broadcast, right? Now, let's talk about non-broadcast, which I like to think is one of my specialties, right? Non-broadcast, your demo is going to be an important part of it, as well as your audition, okay? So you may get those auditions from an agent, right? I get a certain percentage of corporate work from my agent, and I know that you cast as well, but probably the majority of what you do is commercial work. But for me, corporate work, I get cast either on my audition, but I also get cast quite a bit from my demo. And so it is very important that that demo is strategically target marketed towards the market you want to sell to. And so it's good to have that demo because I've been hired off my demo multiple times in a non-broadcast market, multiple times. And my spots on my demo have been able to be split up. If I needed to send an independent spot to a particular client to showcase a particular talent, they're also on my website. They're always split apart so that people can see the industry and they can also listen to the spot and they can say, oh, that's automotive and it is informational and inspiring, believe it or not. It could be inspiring to be automotive.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so both are very, very important. So for me, I'm always a big proponent and a big fan. And I know, yes, I'm a coach and I do produce demos, but I really believe because I have had personal experience and I know a lot of people in non-broadcast get hired off their demos quite a bit. It's important.
Yes, and I just want to impress upon your bosses, your listeners, that you could get hired in all different realms and for all different reasons. I've gotten hired so many times just during lunch, like just having a lunch meeting with someone, just talking to them as I talk to them. And just recently, I don't know if you even know this, but we're producers in an audio drama that we're recording in the fall with some big partners out of New York and some amazing names coming into that. And I was producing a preliminary rehearsal table read before it was even cast. And I was reading one of the roles because we needed another voice for one of the roles. And the producers came to me and they said, yeah, Lau, we kind of want you to play the role. And I said, oh, wow, really?
Well, that's that
and they
personal...
said, yeah, we do. And that's the personal relationship.
The personal relationship,
Yeah.
personal networking, which is
Yeah.
really important, guys. In
Really.
casting trends, I think this has always been a trend in casting, is that relationship. And gosh, when I went to Amsterdam to teach at one of the retreats there for J. Michael, I met up with a studio in Amsterdam who, just because they saw me on my website, listened to my demos, and then I met them in person, I now have a working relationship with them. And am I the absolute best female voice they've ever heard in their life? Of course so, but no. But really, do you know what I mean? Like, it's all about that relationship, right? That relationship. Look, I am
Yes.
not proud, guys. My ego does not get in the way. If I get the job, I get the job. You know what I mean? And I'm like, look, this is a business to me. For me, my ego doesn't need to be labeled as the best and touted as the best female voiceover ever, legend. Because, gosh, it's all subjective. We know this over and over again. But because I worked on that relationship, right? I had things in place and I was ready, willing, and eager to help and lend my thoughts when they asked, hey, what's it like in the States in hiring for this type of work? And because I developed that relationship and I did that work, bam, I got the job. And that is absolutely a valid, successful way to get cast.
And sometimes it's not, it's very pure. Sometimes your intention is literally not to get cast or get the job.
Yeah.
It's really to get the relationship. I always like to say, I would rather get the relationship than the job because I'm building a career. I'm not working jobs. I'm building a career. And they're two different things. So if I'm going to sort of lose the battle, but I'm going to win the war, so to speak, I'd rather do that. In other words, I want to make myself invaluable. So if I'm not the voice as a voice talent, I'm going to find you great people that are the voice. I'm going to recommend friends of mine. I'm going to recommend other agencies.
Now, Lau, way back in the beginning, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to start the VO Peeps networking group, because I started the VO Peeps because I wanted to have a collection of like-minded people. But then I said, what am I going to do for them? I want to provide an educational resource. So I started interviewing all of my idols because I wanted to develop that relationship.
Yes.
Okay. And it wasn't coming at them in a hire me, or recommend me. It was in a very different format where I was interested in them and I wanted to share their resources with my community. And because of that, I became known. And once you become known, right, over the years, then you become top of mind for referrals. And that absolutely is where that relationship work comes into play.
And there's no, or at least there shouldn't be any desperation surrounding that. I don't know if you'd call that a trend. I think that was always the case.
Well, I like to say casting trends. This is just a casting like known. It's a known
if
fact.
we're talking, right, it's a
Why
fact.
do you get
if we're
cast?
talking to people, like quiz yourself. If I'm at an event or if I'm talking to someone on Zoom, am I thinking the whole time, ooh, I want them to hire me. Ooh, I want that job. Ooh, or am I really actively listening to what they're saying to me and offering value to them in points that make the conversation invigorated and alive? And then following up after that and doing the due diligence to follow up after that. Am I doing all of that? Or am I just thinking, I would love them to get me that job?
Yeah. And a lot of times, you know what? You'll get the job because you have proven yourself to be reliable, to be focused and intent on serving that client's needs and or agent's needs. I can't tell you how many agents I interviewed first and then they got to know me. And guess who got put on the roster? Just saying, right? As long as everything is in place, we have that. And again, I know we're talking casting trends, but I think we'd be remiss if we did not mention the importance of, maybe it's not a trend, but the fact that the relationships count. And that's relationships between you and your agents and relationships between you and your direct clients. And of course, agents are all dependent on relationships with their clients to get you work, right? It all just kind of feeds into the system.
Yeah, and I think the trend part comes in, Annie, where we say, Okay, we all know this. We want real voices, casual, relatable voices. We want that. Well, how does that transcribe to the real world? Well, as I'm making the relationships, building the relationships, really talking, really conversing, really paying attention, I'm showcasing and demoing what I do for my real connection. So that's exactly where casting and a producer, and like now, the last couple of years, are going to say, ooh, I'm listening to them. I like the way they sound. Ooh, they sound really cool. And they're going to assume, they're going to run on the assumption that you can then bring that into the booth. Yeah, so that's where I think the trend is.
That's a huge assumption, guys. So bosses, I want you to be prepared for that. That means, right, the fact that you're going to bring that authenticity, that connection to you in the booth. What does that mean? That means you need to be the actor. And maybe back, I don't know, in the 60s, it was okay to have that announcery voice and make it sound a particular way, but it is no longer the case where you can just go in and make it sound pretty. You just can't. You've got to be able to bring that connection, and that requires acting. And if you do not have the acting chops, then you need to get the acting chops. And I'm a big believer that you can train. You can train to get this. You can train to have that connection and that authenticity to the story. Because again, how many times do we hear, we are storytellers? I don't know if I've heard that phrase over and over and over again, but sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, I know I'm a storyteller. But really, am I a storyteller when I'm doing an e-learning module? Yeah, you absolutely are. Yeah. You've got to know how to take those words and make them sound meaningful and make them come alive. And so that is being able to tell a story, being the actor. So casting trends, be the actor and showcase that to whoever will listen. And that's what's going to get you cast. Right?
And we don't equate story with fiction. Story is connection. It's really sharing an experience, sharing a happening, sharing an event with another or with a group for information, for persuasion, for entertainment, for whatever purposes. It doesn't necessarily mean it's false or fiction or fake. It means it very well could be real and fact-based, but it's in a story form. It's in a narrative form. And understanding how to handle that in a very real and authentic way is exactly the trend of the industry today.
Wow. I feel like we went off, but I mean, honestly, what's important? Diversity, authenticity. It's not so much about having that perfect sound. It's about the connection you have, and the connection you have not just to your material and the fact that you can actually vocalize that, but the connection you have with your agents, with your clients, your potential clients, because that is what's going to get you cast.
Absolutely.
And knowing yourself and knowing where you fit in this, knowing yourself enough to go for those areas that you excel in.
And staying bright and hopeful and positive and humorous. That is a trend of like, whether it's
I want to work with somebody like that.
Yeah, whether we're looking for a stand-up comedian or we're looking for a mom sitcom type or we're looking for, we want pops of humor and pops of humility in your work.
Oh, love that.
That's real for us.
Pops of humor and humility. I love that. Yeah. Oh, what a wonderful topic. Wonderful topic. And Lau, thank you for lending your ultimate wisdom in what you do and what you love every day. And we appreciate you so much, Lau.
I appreciate you tremendously.
Well, you guys, I want to ask you, as individuals, it's difficult sometimes to feel like we're making a huge impact. But as a group, we can absolutely contribute to the growth of our communities in ways that we never thought possible. Visit 100voiceswhocare.org to find out more and to learn how. Big shout out to IPDTL. I love connecting with Lau and all of you bosses. Find out more at ipdtl.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Mwah!
See you next week. Mwah!
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.
I always like after the first take, it's really nice when you do a first take, they go, well, yeah, that was perfect. that's what you want. Well, I got nothing. That's the session. That's the session that I want. I don't want the one going, well, maybe we try that again.